In harbors of certain coastal towns, typically in late afternoon, fishing boats rumble into docks and unload the day's rewards. Whatever has been acquired from the ocean that day gets passed off to the buyers, who make their livings too from the catch. And so begins from the docks the next journey for the sea creatures, or, by this point, the sea food, finding its way from here, in some form and by various routes, to the dinner table. A major industry, fishing, and one that has shaped culture and commerce in these towns and harbors for centuries. For today's guest, Joby Norton, his harbor is Scituate, Massachusetts, a New England town he's been immersed in his whole life, and as an operator at Mulaney's Fish Market for nearly 40 years.
I really did fall in love with the industry and the people, and you get, fishermen get it in their blood, and it's part of you.
As gritty as they come, Joby is doggedly committed to his work.
It usually starts around 4 in the morning and ends around 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
And these are momentous times for the harborside community, as Joby plans to build a new retail space, warehouse, and restaurant, and also an on-site processing plant at Mulaney's, the addition of which will allow for all fish brought into Scituate Pier to be sold and processed locally, a maneuver that will significantly lower shipping costs for fishermen and wholesale costs for restaurants, all part of a deft and resourceful effort by Joby to salvage and strengthen the industry in which he's spent his life.
There used to be, 24 commercial fishermen out of Scituate. Now there's 6. It's just a hard business to get into and stay in. You're working a lot of hard hours, right. And at the end of the year, you're like, I made nothing. If something's not done, it's going to be a lost industry around here.
I caught up with Joby and his giant Irish wolfhound, Shaylee, on a frigid Saturday morning this winter. Oh yeah, 30 degrees today.
And it's probably 35 degrees in the building.
Yeah. It was 10 a.m. and Joby had been working for 5 hours.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. No problem, Ty.
Thanks for taking the time.
Not a problem. Saturday morning.
Saturday morning. 10 a.m. What, you said 6 to 10 you were working?
I usually come in Saturdays around 5 or 6 for a couple hours just to set everything up for the day. So
nice. And you work 7 days a week?
We're open 7 days a week, yeah.
That's not nonstop.
It's nonstop,
yeah.
But that's what you got to do when you're on your own business, I guess. And
yeah.
A business that, a lot of it gets done early in the mornings.
Right. To give listeners some context, we're at Mulaney's Fish Market, Scituate, Mass. If you heard about someone who's been running a business for 40 years, getting up at 4 in the morning, you might think Joby is run down, but you look great, man.
I'm still kind of run down.
You look great.
The gray beard.
Amazing beard.
Keep it through Christmas for Santa Claus.
Oh, yeah.
This is a tough place to live.
Yeah.
You get freaking goddamn cold weather for 6 months a year. And it's tough, it's wet, it's cold. And, I do love it. And I don't think there's any real reason to live in New England except for, family and friends. Because, again, you get real people here. And, I've traveled all over the country and the world. There's something about this area. People are just real. They tell you the truth no matter if you want to hear it or not.
Yep.
And they don't bullshit you.
Yeah.
And, not everyone's trying to sell you something. And,
Yeah.
There's
an authenticity.
There is.
Yeah.
There is. And I don't know if it's just because I've grown up here or what, but just what I've seen. And so I remember, one funny story years ago, I had about 20,000 pounds of fish on the truck, and I brought it into Boston to be sold. And, we're talking about being real. So I brought about 20,000 pounds of fish. I sold it to the auction. I'm selling it to this one guy. He was a big beast of a guy. I mean, just a gorilla. Like, where you picture like a wharf guy with the hat and the, big, huge muscles. And so I think I sold the fish for like $1.25 or something to him a pound. So I loaded this whole truck by hand. It probably took me 2 hours, dragging 20,000 pounds of fish off, putting it on pallets. As soon as I get off the truck, this guy comes over and goes, I'm not paying you $1.25. I'm only going to pay you $1.10. And I'm like, fuck you. He's like, no, fuck you. And, I'm like, I'll just put it back on the truck. And he said, no, you won't. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'll put it back in the truck and I'll go sell it to your competition 2 doors down. So I started loading it back in the truck, and halfway through, he's like, no, I'm kidding. I'll buy it. I'm like, no, fuck you. You're not getting it now. And then load the whole thing on the truck, and he's like, oh, I'll pay you the full, well, 20. I'll pay you an extra dime for putting it back on. I'm like, no, you pay me $1.50 now, and then you can unload it. And, you know, if you want, you can do that. But, you know, but that's, you know, some of the things that you deal with real people, you know, and another business, you know.
Yeah.
And I gained so much respect from that guy for the next 20, 30 years. Yeah. There was never a negotiation of price again. It was whatever I said the price was the price.
Was that the first time you'd interacted with him?
That was the first time I ever met the guy, yeah. You know?
And you were young.
I was probably 20s, you know, I was just a kid. You know, he thought I was just a kid driving a truck, and which I was. Yeah. But I'm like, I was, you know.
But you knew enough to know that he was trying to rip you off.
Right.
Yeah.
He was just trying to get it for, you know, save himself, make himself an extra couple grand for a day on my expense. And
that's funny. So you're friendly with that guy still?
I am, yeah.
That's so funny.
You know, his business actually went out of business, but I still see him around as a good guy.
Yeah.
Not
what initially drew you into the?
Nothing. No, my father was a pharmaceutical rep. My mother worked in a doctor's office and had no ties to the fish community at all, except I needed a job.
Yeah, and in a natural interest.
In an interest. Yeah. You know what? I don't think I had an interest initially. I think once I started doing it, and I really did fall in love with, you know, the industry and the people, and you get, you know, fishermen get it in their blood, and it's part of you. I mean, I couldn't do anything else now. Yeah. I mean, I wish I could some nights. Yeah. You know, I'm like, I wish fucking could just do something else. Yeah. You know, but there's nothing else. I couldn't be away from the ocean. I mean, I love the ocean. I love the, you know, love the area. Love everything about it. The romanticism of the fishing industry and the ocean and everything else. So it's great.
What keeps you going when you do have that thought that you wish you were doing something else?
I don't know. I don't know, honestly, really. I mean, you just, this is what I've chosen, and you know, I can do it. Yeah, I mean, I think the confidence. Okay, no, I can do this.
Yeah, it's your thing.
It's my thing. I just got to figure out how I'm going to do this. Yeah. You know, whatever the obstacle may be. Yeah. You know, and okay, you can just figure it out.
Yeah, you keep pushing.
You know, like Bo Jackson, just do it. You know, just don't fucking cry about it. Don't whine about it. Don't ask for it. Just do it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
that's awesome.
A little background about me. I mean, I started here when I was a kid in high school, unloading the boats. I need people to unload the boats that come in to the docks. So I think when I was like 15 or 16, I came down and started loading the boats.
Loading the boats right in Scituate.
Right in Scituate Harbor here, And back then, I think it was 1985, you know, we used to take in about 20,000 pounds of fish a day off the boats. And we'd load it, you know, 7-8 feet high into the back of trailers, tractor trailers, and it would go all day, all night, usually all night. You know, sometimes the boats would come in at 4 in the afternoon. Sometimes they come in at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, depending on the weather and how much they were catching. So it jumped sort of really right into it.
And you're a local kid.
I'm a local Scituate kid, And the owner at the time was Chris Mullaney. He owned this fish market, and he was a BC High kid too, and a BC guy. Yeah. So when I came in to, you know, look for a job, I said, "Hey, here you go. You can have a job. Start right away." And so I worked through high school, and then went through college. Worked on breaks and weekends sometimes during college and stuff like that. When I graduated in '91, well, I was looking for my real job. I had all my suits lined up, and you know, the management and marketing degree ready to go. And when I was looking for my real job, he's like, "Why don't you just, you know, work on here until you find something?"
Yeah.
And at the time, the economy kind of sucked, and I enjoyed the business. I mean, it's a very real business.
Tangible.
The people are real. There's no bullshit.
Yeah.
And you know, I just enjoyed it. So I stayed on, and you know, a couple times I thought about moving on. I just really enjoyed the business. I mean, I still to this day, I'm going on, you know, 30-something years. I still learn stuff all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I just got on a fishing board, a sector board last week. with a local federal fisherman here who fish federal waters. And I got on their board, and they're talking about, their quotas and all this stuff that they're going on in their board meeting. And I'm looking at them going, what the fuck are you guys talking? I had no clue, And I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
So I still learn stuff every day, which is good. And I enjoy the business. But basically, we started as a small fish market with one store here in Scituate. And, we did some wholesale to restaurants. And then when I started working after college, we decided to maybe try to expand the business a little bit. We opened up another retail store in Cohasset, which we still have today, which does great. It's more of a gourmet fish shop, I guess you could call it. I mean, because they get the beer and the wine, and they have, the cheeses and everything else to go with it. And it goes better with the little clientele, more of Cohasset than Scituate's a little more blue collar. Yeah. We still have the old fish market here.
So in terms of the overall picture, you're kind of like the second person in line in terms of the fisher in the ocean. The fishermen or women catch the fish, and then you either get it right from them, then you either sell it to a customer who walks into your store, or you sell it to a restaurant.
Restaurant, correct. Yeah. So the fishermen will come in, catch their whatever they caught for the day. We process the fish, cut it, fillet it, pack it, and we either sell it in retail or we sell it wholesale to restaurants and institutions and stuff like that. So over the years, we've had decent growth and we've been fairly busy, and that just sort of led to the new phase, which we're looking at, because when I started, we used to unload 20,000 pounds of fish every day, 7 days a week. Because of regulations and because of climate change and the amounts of fish that the fishermen now allowed to catch, that number's dropped to probably 2,000 pounds a day.
Oh, wow.
There used to be, 24 commercial fishermen out of Scituate. Now there's 6. It's just a hard business to get into and stay in. Yeah. It's coming down to, their costs have increased tremendously over the years from, fuel and insurance and everything else, as well as the amount of fish they're allowed to catch has been lowered. So they're not allowed to catch as much because of quota systems and regulations. So for a young guy to get into it, even though his father might have done it, his grandfather might have done it, for a young guy to get into it, you're working a lot of hard hours, and at the end of the year, you're like, I made nothing. Yeah. So a lot of young guys aren't getting into it. The older guys are getting old and they're getting out of it. So that's another reason. And Scituate is, in Massachusetts, you have New Bedford's biggest port, and you have Gloucester, Boston, and then Scituate. I mean, people don't think of little Scituate as, a commercial port, but it really is. And Scituate's heritage is based on fishing. It's a big part of the cultural aspect of this town. And it's been dwindling the last 10 to 15 years.
And so with the regulations and the pinching for the fishermen, what's the alternative?
Well, that's what sort of I've been coming up with the fishermen over the last couple of years, trying to figure out ways that they can survive and keep doing business, because the guys who are in it now are guys who want to be in it. They like fishing. They're their own bosses, their own small businessmen. And for years, a fisherman would go out, they'd catch the fish, they'd come in, they'd sell it. It wouldn't matter what they caught, how much they got for a price. They would make money and go on their way. They'd do it again. Over the last 10 years, fishermen really have had to adapt to become small businesses. They have to watch their costs. They have to manage their quotas, forecast, all these things that, for the most part, fishermen never did or had the ability to do. Yeah. I mean, for the most part, they're not really college educated. They're hardworking guys and women, but they really never put numbers down. I mean, a couple times I've gone over with some fishermen. I'm like, okay, I'll go over numbers with them. I'm like, okay, you're paying $1.50 a pound for a quota of a fish. You're only getting $1.60 paid to you for it, but your costs are 30 cents. Yeah. So you're actually losing 20 cents a pound every pound you catch. And they'll look at me dead faced and like, okay, well, I'll just catch more. Right. I'm like, you go backwards. You go backwards quicker.
So when you say $1.50 for the quota, who are they paying that to?
Well, so the quota system now, what the federal boats have is the government allots each fisherman or each sector, area of the ocean. Like Situate has a sector, North Shore, Cape, have sectors, and they allocate X amount of fish, pounds of fish, X amount of codfish, like haddock, flounder, to each boat. And those boats can pool their quota into their sector. But if a certain sector catches all their codfish in April, if they're only allocated, say, 50,000 pounds for a year, and all the boats catch it in April, and they have to get all the way till December.
Yeah.
If they catch codfish the rest of the year and they don't have quota, they're actually fined by the government. For every pound they get, they have to buy it from the government type thing for $2.50, $3 a pound.
Oh, wow.
So they could go backwards. And even if they're not fishing for it, if they accidentally catch it, that still counts.
Yeah.
And if they kick it over, it still counts.
Yeah.
So what they have to do is they'll have to buy that quota from another sector. Another sector. The North Shore may have, 10,000 pounds for sale, or have 10,000 pounds in their sector, and they can buy it into, the Situate sector, and the guys in Gloucester were like, okay, I want $2 a pound for it, because that's what I think I might make.
Yeah.
So they'd buy it for $2 a pound, because they have to have it, and then they have to hope that they get paid $2 a pound, that the market's there. I mean, if they land that fish and the market's at $1.50, they lose $1.50. They lose 50 cents right off the bat.
So, in terms of the culture and the community of fishermen and others like you who are buying the fish, are there people that you've known a long time? Are you still going to Boston and buying fish there too?
Yeah, I still do. We're still going to Boston every day.
What does that look like? You drive up there at 4 a.m. and then it's a negotiation on the dock?
Yeah, they have. It's the thing about fishing business is, it's a commodity. It's a commodities market.
Yeah.
The fish's price is based on auction every day.
Yeah.
So there's an auction that sets the price for that fish a day. So, like any sort of commodity, the only difference being is it's a perishable commodity. It's not like you can buy $50,000 worth of fish today and put it in a warehouse, and in 6 months, if the price is better, you sell it. You got to sell it in a day or two.
Right.
Because it's perishable. So it can be fun playing that, or it can be stressful.
Urgency.
Right, because you really have to be on top of it, and weather plays a big factor. If you get fishing today and you're paying $1.50, but that the weather's going to be crappy for the next 3 days, no boats are going to come in, chances are the price is going to go up. You can hold it for a day, maybe make an extra dime or something.
Yeah.
Or, you never know, another boat could come in tomorrow with double the amount on his boat and drop the price on you, and now you're losing money.
Right. And what is it like? Describe the scene at a typical morning.
It's changed now. Years ago, it was literally a bunch of guys in the oilskins and sweaters and sweatshirts sitting around a big table with their coffees, and there'd be a big chalkboard on the wall. This boat has 10,000 cod, 5,000 haddock, 3,000 flounder, this boat, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And they would start out the bidding, and okay, I'll give you $1, I'll do a buck quarter, $1.15, $1.26, and it would just, it's like an auction.
Yeah. And you as a buyer, you have to establish some credibility, or could anybody walk in?
You can't just walk in and become a buyer in the auction. You have to, there's the rules for that, who can actually get into it. But, as a seller, you can sell through it. Anyone can sell through it, but, people will be leery of some guy they don't know who he is or whatever comes in, and they don't know if his fish is any good or not. So you're really buying his sight unseen. Now things have changed a little bit. Of course, everything's computerized now, so the auctions are done by computer, so there's no actually sitting around the room anymore with your coffee and your oilskins and yelling. But people are still screaming at their computers, but no one can hear them.
Yeah. Is it cordial?
Yeah. This business is, you can sit there. I could sell fish to a guy today, and you could cut my bill, and I'd be, you fucking jacker, you asshole.
Yeah.
You know, then tomorrow, you know, he'd be selling me fish, and you know, so it is cordial, but it's
competitive.
It's competitive,
Yeah.
but
you're in the game together.
But everyone's in the game together. We're all working for the same goal. We're all doing the same thing, and it's you know, there's really not. I've been doing the same business with the same people for, like I said, almost 40 years. Cool. There's never really fallouts or anything like that. You know, unfortunately, a lot of companies have fallen by the wayside because with the lack of fish coming in now, a lot of companies haven't diversified and haven't been able to, you know, change their business models, and they just weren't being able to continue. You know, they were counting on, you know, processing 100,000 pounds of fish a day, and all of a sudden there's only 10,000 pounds around, and, you know.
Zooming out, the reason I would imagine for the regulations is that so all the fish don't disappear.
Oh, fish, right.
Yeah.
And I mean, in reality, you know, there's the fishermen and the government, NOAA and National Marine Fisheries, they argue about the amount of fish out in the sea because there's no real way to tell how much fish is in the sea. I mean, it's, you know, because of global warming and climate change, you know, codfish that may have been out here for decades and centuries, the water gets a half a degree warmer, that fish goes off Maine or off Iceland, you know, moves around. And there's no way, you know, if they're not catching it here, it doesn't mean they're not catching it off Iceland or, you know, off Newfoundland. So that's kind of hard. And the government's doing the right thing by trying to regulate it so that there's fish for the future. And they're doing the best they can with the science that they have. And I mean, we have one fishing boat out of Scituate here that he takes the scientists out, National Marine Fisheries out, the scientists out, and they go and they catch fish, and they measure and report how many fish they catch in a certain area. And that's how some of the data that they get to establish their regulations. But even then, it's not an exact science, because you could fish one area today and catch X amount of fish, and fish that same area tomorrow, and there'd be no fish. Right. So it's kind of hard to measure and speculative. Right.
So once, a few questions about when a boat comes into Boston, does it have one type of fish? Is it, because I know you're selling salmon, tuna, flounder, striper, bluefish. Is it all coming from the same source?
No, it comes from different sources. And I mean, it depends on, again, the fisherman and what he has quota for and what he's actually fishing for. I mean, they can adapt their fishing methods and their nets to catch only, you know, mostly codfish and mostly flounders. And depending on what they have for quota, they try to target that species more. Gotcha. But when they are fishing, you know, if they're fishing for codfish, fish for haddock, they're going to catch pollock sometimes. They're going to catch redfish. They're going to catch some flounders or mudfish. So they bring all that in, and then that's all sold.
And what are they using to catch it? Nets?
Just nets, So there's primarily three types of commercial fishing. There's long lines where they set out these long lines with hooks on them with bait, and those are usually for cod or haddock. And the fish come and grab the bait and get cut on the hook, and they haul those lines in and take the fish off the hook. There's dragging, which on the back of the fishing boat, there's big nets that they unfold into the ocean and bring down to the bottom of the ocean with these big steel doors. So the net's on the bottom of the ocean, and they keep the boat moving, and any fish that are swimming get caught up in that net. They bring that net up, go through it. What they don't, what they don't want, they, get rid of or they take in. And then there's gill netting, which is they set nets out that float in the ocean in between buoys. Again, fish, swim through it. They get caught by their gills in that net. When the fishermen come back the next day, pull up that net and take the fish out.
Gotcha.
And each fishing method has its pros and cons. Depending on who you talk to, and they're not. Some of them are more environmentally sensitive than others, and but it all depends, I think, really on the fishermen and how they actually work and fish their gear. If they did it the way they're supposed to all the time, then there's really not much drawback to any of them. But sometimes there could be drawbacks between bycatch, or, seals get caught, or marine mammals, or whatever. So
once you get the fish from the fisherman, you get it in the Mulaney's truck, you bring it back to Situate.
Bring it to Situate here, and then we
prepare it.
Yeah, we weigh it and fillet it and pack it, and then we have
delivery guy.
We have deliveries that go out daily, 7 days a week to restaurants. Like I said, we primarily focus on, the South Shore of Massachusetts, Boston, South.
Yeah.
We've been, like I said, we've been in business for almost 40 years now, so we have a pretty good reputation for our, the quality of fish that we use. Like I said, we primarily use day boat fish.
Yep.
Which is a higher quality than a boat that might go out for a week or two and come in, have it iced.
Yep.
Our fishermen come in every day. It's as close of a turnaround as you can get. I mean, usually, like I said, the boats come in usually in the afternoon or night.
Yeah, right.
So we'd process it the next day, and then we'd go out to restaurants. So in reality, it's a 24-hour window with us where, a supermarket or something like that, it would go from the boat to a guy like me who would truck it to like an auction house or another wholesaler. They would buy it the next day. They'd put it in their cooler. They'd fillet it the following day, ship it out to a supermarket, who, depending on their sales, it may be warehoused in their supermarket for 1 or 2 days before it actually gets out to the counter and to their customer.
So that's like the mass market approach.
That's a mass market approach. And it works, but I mean, like I said, it's a perishable, highly perishable thing. It's not like, I don't think there's anything really as perishable as seafood, honestly, because I mean, chicken, beef, your produce all have, week or 2 week shelf life type thing. Well, fish, literally, it's bad.
Yeah.
It stinks within a few days.
Yeah.
So
this is the Jalapeno Podcast, and this is Ty McDonald, your host, in conversation with Joby Norton of Mulaney's Harborside Fish Market in Situate, Mass. So, and then what about fish farming?
Well, that's fish is a great protein.
Yeah.
And it's an economical protein for a lot of people around the world.
Yeah.
Fish farming, again, done correctly, is a great way to raise that protein and be able to sell that protein.
Yeah.
Fish farming, like regular farming, done incorrectly, has tremendous side effects on the environment and everything else. I mean, people are always leery of salmon, farm-raised salmon. I don't want to eat farm-raised salmon, but in reality, farm-raised salmon is a great natural protein.
Yeah.
You get some bad press about farm-raised salmon and some of the bad practices sometimes they do, like down in Chile, for instance. A lot of it's raised in fjords down there, which is a big bays type thing. And because of the way the farming's set up, they have the big fish, big salmon pens, like big nets or cages in the fjord.
Yeah.
They feed the salmon shit in the water, and whatever food they don't feed floats to the bottom. So it gets polluted a little bit, and that water doesn't flush in. It only flushes in once or twice with the tide a day, in a big fjord like that. So that water isn't clean. So what happens is the fish end up getting bacteria. They end up getting viruses or parasites.
Yeah.
So then they have to feed the fish antibiotics or things so the fish don't get sick, so they can still sell them.
Right.
And it's bad practice.
Yeah,
It's a bad business. What they do in like Norway or Iceland or Ireland and parts of Canada is they move those salmon cages way out to sea. And they're half mile out in the open ocean where the water's constantly flowing all day long.
Yeah.
So when they feed the fish eat it, they crap or whatever. That's waste keeps going.
Right.
So they don't sit in it. They don't get sick. They don't get parasites. They don't
need antibiotics.
bacteria. They don't need antibiotics. They put the fish down deeper where the water's colder, so they don't get, parasites again and stuff like that. So they don't have to treat them. So it's an all-natural product. And depending on what they feed them, if they're feeding them, herring meal, which they would eat naturally in the ocean, salmon will eat herring. If they're eating herring meal or something like that and they're feeding it correct feed, there's nothing wrong with that product. And it's a great, stable market.
Right.
A lot of times, same with shrimp. A lot of shrimp is farmed, and there's bad connotation with some farm-raised shrimp. again, for the same reason that,
Yeah.
they have to, these companies would have to feed it antibiotics and other things to keep them healthy.
Yeah.
But over the years, what you see is people developing new ways to farm fish. Like shrimp now, there's a lot of shrimp is raised in big, huge tanks where the water's filtered.
Yep.
It's kept cold and it's fed correctly. So the shrimp don't get sick. So it's a great product.
Yeah.
Yeah. Compared to being in a pond in Vietnam or India or something like that where God knows what's leaching into the pond.
Yeah.
So people are starting to develop different ways to, farm raised products that are environmentally conscious as well as economical.
Right. And as a consumer, ideally you come into Mulaney's and get your own fish, or you go to a local restaurant, it's, freshly caught. But on a broader scale, I guess, what as a consumer, what should you look out for? What kind of questions should you ask?
I think, like, not just with fish, but like with everything people are eating now.
Yeah.
But it's true, and it's, where your produce is coming from, your meat's coming from, your chicken's coming from, your fish is coming from. I think people are starting, and they should be more conscientious of where was it caught, where was it raised, how was it raised. You don't want pesticides and shit on your vegetables.
Right.
You buy organic. You don't want hormones in your beef or your chicken.
Yeah.
Nobody does.
Right.
So I think as consumers, people have to just be aware of and ask. Where does this come from? How was it raised? When was it caught? When was it slaughtered?
Yeah. Yep.
I think food is, I love food. I love eating it, I love cooking it, I love working with it. Everyone eats it 3 times a day.
Yep.
So it's important what you put in your body and what you feed your family.
Yeah.
That's the other part of it that, sometimes you don't realize it until you start having kids and you're like, oh, geez, you start looking at ingredients and stuff and you're like, oh, crap, I'm not feeding them that.
Yeah. And aside from just being cautious of what you're eating from a health standpoint, it is also nice and kind of romantic to just know that where it's coming from and know that you're helping the local fisherman, or that you're helping Joby run his business, and that the restaurant is trying to engage in practices that are sustainable and healthy for all parties involved.
Well, then that's right. It's how I sort of pick who I do business with as well.
Yep.
From the fishermen that we buy from, I could buy from more fishermen, but I don't always like the practices that they may do. I could sell to more restaurants, but if I sell a restaurant fish from Scituate, and they're selling it as fish from Scituate, that's great. If I sell a restaurant fish from Scituate and they're also buying it from Iceland or China because it's cheaper and they're averaging their price down, I don't want to do business with that. I don't.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. It's not who I sort of pick and choose to do business with. And it happens, and I don't blame a company for they have to do what they have to do.
Yeah.
For me, we try to be an environmentally conscious company in all aspects of our business. I think it's from the trucks that we buy that, are fuel efficient trucks, instead of getting 8, 9, 10 miles per gallon for a box truck.
Yep.
I pay a little bit more. I get 12, 13 miles per gallon. It's not a lot, but it's something.
Makes a difference.
It makes a difference.
Yeah,
and if everyone made a little bit of a difference on everything, we could see it going forward.
Yeah, more intention behind the decision making.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I said, we have a reduce reuse, policy here that we started, and it wasn't done so much out of being green as it was for economics. I mean, recycling saves me probably $700 a month.
Yeah.
In dumpster fees.
Yeah.
It's not a lot, but over the course of a year for a small business, it is a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And same with, like I was saying, the new project that we're going to be doing, putting up a green building, and they're, besides being the right thing to do, it's economically viable.
Right. It'll save you money over time.
It saves you money over time.
Yeah.
Like I said, is what I'm trying to do with for local fishermen is how I came about with the idea of, putting a new processing plant and doing the project I'm doing is, the fishermen have certain set costs that they just can't get out of. Your fuel's set, your insurance is set, your mortgages are set.
Yep.
But some of the costs that they incur, whether it be, 10 cents a pound trucking the fish from Scituate to Boston and New Bedford, selling it through the auction, 25 cents a pound, brokerage fees are, 5-7 cents a pound.
Yeah.
So if they can eliminate those costs, 35-40 cents a pound,
right,
on fish that's cost them $1.50 to $2, that's a substantial savings.
Absolutely.
And to be able to process it here in Scituate, caught in Scituate, processed in Scituate, sold in Scituate, we can give that money back to the fishermen at the area or save them that money, that cost, without hurting our business.
Yep.
And everyone, it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah. So you've been in the same building 40 years, Mulaney's.
Yeah, so this building was built in 1946.
Yeah.
We've been here for 40 years. It's it was never meant to be a fish county. It was a dentist's office back in the 40s and 50s, and little rooms here and there off it that we've sort of made it work and made it efficient over the years. But it's just we've outgrown the building, and the building's old. So I just got town approval from the zoning board and planning board the last couple of weeks and month to rebuild the building, to tear it down, the existing building now, and build right now we have about 800 or 900 square feet of actual workspace. I'm going to go to about 4,500 square feet.
Wow.
Put in a full basement. Again, put all my refrigeration down in the basement, making it more energy efficient. It's cooler down there. They won't have to work as hard. Refrigeration, everything down the basement. First floor will be an expanded retail where we can offer more items. Then we're going to have a big processing plant where we can process all the fish out of Scituate.
Yep.
Thus saving the fishermen some money, and as well as saving the industry in a way, making it more viable to have some infrastructure in town for it. And then the second floor, we're going to have a commercial kitchen where we'll make all our value-added products, our chowders and bisques and crab cakes. Yeah. And then eventually put a seafood restaurant up on the second floor.
Cool.
So, yeah.
And what's the timeline on that?
It's probably going to be about a year. So hopefully
Yeah.
we'll be up and going by, ideally by the end of next summer, but we'll see how it goes. So.
Yeah. And in general, obviously the day-to-day sounds like it's a hard work on top of hard work consistently. But what would you say, what are some of the hardest parts, some of the biggest challenges?
Honestly, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day.
It's
I mean,
early.
people like, that hurts. I've been doing it so long. No, you don't. You don't. You really don't. It's, that's where the alarm goes off, you get up and you get out of bed, you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
But you just do it.
Yeah.
But then again, for me, I get more done from 4:30 in the morning until 7:30 than most people get done all day.
Yeah.
You're up and running. That's difficult. I think the other part of it that's really difficult is being able to forecast what your needs, your customers are, and balance that with the supply chain of, your customers need something, but if the fishing boats don't fish,
right,
you don't have the product.
Right.
So being able to work with your customers and say, oh, you know what, they didn't catch codfish today, they got haddock.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to use haddock.
Yeah.
Instead, and some customers can adapt to that, some can't. And we've tried to do over the years is really work with restaurants and stuff like that we build relationships with that, trust that Joby's going to send me something today. I got to be prepared to change my dish on the menu or change the presentation or change the cost of it or whatever.
Yeah.
Based on it being fresh and local and sustainable, I'm willing to do that instead of just buying it from, this other company that's I'm going to get codfish from, but it may be from Scituate, it may be from China, it may be from Norway, it could be whatever.
Just so they can have the same exact dish.
So they can have the same exact dish. And, I really enjoy, like I said, cooking and working with chefs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, the chefs that we deal with, are all sustainably minded as well. They know that their customers want sustainable food. They want to know where it came from. And they want to be able to be with confidence, sell that to them.
Right.
You know, and it's even with their packaging. I mean, you know, a lot of the customers we have on their takeaway packaging, they use bamboo or corn, you know, biodegradable things instead of the plastics. Which is great, you know, and it costs more money. I mean, we moved away from plastic bags about 5-6 years ago. And, you know, plastic bags cost you half a penny each. We buy biodegradable ones that cost 35 cents each. You know, so it's a big increase, but it's the right thing to do.
And it kind of goes back to the romanticism, call it the constraint of not knowing what the fishermen are going to bring in. That constraint kind of breeds a certain adaptability and variety from the restaurant standpoint, because they have to now get creative with what they have.
Right.
And then that's fun in my opinion, from a consumer standpoint. Not if you're going to a restaurant to get the fish of the day, you're kind of okay with it being whatever came in.
And that's why, you know, going back to consumers have to know where their fish or where their food comes from and be able to, you know, have a relationship with the restaurant they go to on a regular basis. Or the chef has a relationship with their fishmonger or their beef guy or their produce guy, and know that, the produce that we're buying is organic, or it's, you know, it's farmed sustainably and it's local. Same with your fish, and you know, and to have, and for chefs, most chefs are creative. They're arty people anyway. They got into it because they like to create, to cook, and to make a dish look good. And for, you know, a lot of real chefs, that's great, because they're all of a sudden like, oh shit, I got to do something with whiting today. What the hell am I going to do with a whiting? You know, instead of a haddock, or I got to do something with redfish today, or you know. Joby just dropped off razor clams because that's all that came in. And I got to do something with those tonight. You know, and they get to be creative, and that's I think that's part of the fun of it.
It makes it more interesting.
Right.
So, you've been here for, you said, almost 40 years. This new project sounds really exciting. How do you feel about everything, about the evolution, about your contribution to the whole thing?
I think it's good. I mean, like I said, I got in this business, and I still love the business. So I think to be able to come up with a building that fits nicely in the coastal harbor town. You know, I'm not putting up a big steel building. It's going to look like a, you know, Nantucket style house.
Looks like it's been here.
It looks like it's been here, but yet it has total functional, business functional for us. You know, as well as being able to contribute to the town, you know, something that will be here for a long time. The fishermen can rely on. You know, we've gone through a lot of work with the town, and you know, the architects just developing a building that I'm going to be proud of. And you know, I think the town will be too, and I think the town will be able to look at it and say to other businesses that may come into the town, you know, look at what Mulaney's did.
Absolutely.
They're out of the flood zone.
Absolutely,
in the harbor. They're contributing to the town. You know, we do a lot of, you know, my accountant says way too fucking much, you know, fundraising and contributing to local organizations and everything else, to the point where it's disgusting. But it's again, it's the right thing to do.
You're giving back.
You're giving back.
Well, that's what's so cool about it, is that you have a viable business, and you're making these choices that are based on your own values, and in that way, kind of, you're casting a vote for the way of being that you determine as worthwhile, and that's community, and it's frugality, it's efficiency, it's being part of the story of the town, and supporting all the different players that are involved in making that happen.
Right, and making decisions, you know, that I can feel confident about as a business standpoint, but also that I can look at from, you know, my kid's eyes and say, you know what, he put up a green building when it wasn't being done, or he didn't have to, or it was cost way more, or, you know, he made choices that, may not have been easy choices
Right.
at the time, but they were done for a reason,
For the
and
long
right
term.
and the right reason,
Yeah.
for the long term.
Yeah, that's great.
And again, like I said, I think if people really look at business practices, whether big or small, you can do the right decisions and not cost you a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah.
Long term.
So that with the new project, I imagine there's a lot of regulations, a lot of red tape, just creating something like this.
There is, and it's hard, and especially when you focus on your business all the time, and then all of a sudden you have to learn different ways of getting things done.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the hardest things I think I've had to learn is some of the regulations and stuff like that. Even though Situate's supportive of the project, they still have zoning laws and bylaws and different regulations that can make projects difficult.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I learned through this process is, don't just take someone's word for it and give up and say, oh, you can't do it. I didn't have enough parking. They said,
Yeah.
town said I didn't have enough parking to do my project based on the amount of square foot and the customers that I would have. And, they said, you don't have enough parking, you can't do it. I'm like, well, that's stupid.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, that's the bylaw, blah, blah, blah. So I started doing some research and read the town bylaws, which was about as exciting as I can, I can't even think of how dull it was to read. But, I read them twice.
Yeah.
I found a little paragraph tucked away that said, oh, they can grant a waiver for parking. I'm like, okay, well, that's hope. I can tack onto that. And then, I started doing some more research and found some other paperwork where there was a parking study done, 4 or 5 years ago, and I pulled out of that study, which again was even more boring than the bylaws. I pulled out, some information from that said, okay, well, there's another thing that, is on my side here, that there is available parking.
Right.
And when I went to the town with it, and they said, well, where are you going to, what's your argument going to be for the parking? I said, I'm going to base it on your study. I'm like, what study? I'm like, your study that you guys, the town did. And they're like, what are you talking about? I go, back in 2014, you guys did a parking study, blah, blah, blah. These people did it for you, and here are the results.
Yeah.
And they had no idea. They're like, well, we have to read them. Like, I suggest you do, because it's pretty pertinent to what I'm trying to tell you. And, granted, people in town boards and stuff like that, they come and go. They're there for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Laws change, bylaws change. But I think that's an important thing, that if you just have to be as informed as you can get, and have as much information as you can get, to support whatever you're trying to do, whether it's zoning, whether it's certain things in business, or whether it's in certain distribution chains and stuff like that, ways to do things.
Well, do your homework.
Do your homework.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is boring as hell.
Yeah. But also,
just like homework was boring 30 years ago.
But also, it's easy when you're starting something there's a whole mountain of hurdles in front of you, and there's people that might say, for example, no, you can't do this, sorry, you don't have enough parking. And not to look under the hood yourself and not take that no as a reason for you to stop.
Right, absolutely.
And because the person telling you no might not, as you've found out,
may not know
what they were talking about.
And in the same way with like financing, people are gonna say, no, you need X amount, you can't get that kind of money.
Right.
Well, you know what? Who says you can't?
Yeah,
you just haven't looked in all the places.
Right. If you want to make it happen,
you can make it happen.
Yeah.
No matter what it is.
Right.
I mean, so that's something. Any young person, any person who wants to do their own business, I think you have to have confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
And just do it. No, it is tough work. It's freezing in this building right now.
Oh yeah, 30 degrees today.
But it's fun. You're wet and you're cold, and you work hard, and I go home and I'm asleep by 9 o'clock.
Yeah, sleep like a baby.
Sleep like a baby. No problems.
Well, you're so involved. Most people work in an office and they're on a computer, and the work they're doing is pretty abstract, or they're not directly connected. But you're so. It's so requires your participation, your active participation, and your consistent, frequent attention to it.
It does. I mean, everything from getting up in the morning, driving the truck, or from putting together the retail case, the display case, from getting down if, we got to get the fish cut, go cut, get down there and cut with the guys, or, whatever needs to be done, you do it because you have time restraints like everything, and you got to get it done. And, we have a great group of employees, that have been with me. All of them have been with me for a long time. I'm a firm believer in, your employees are what make you as a company. My employees all make very fair, very good wages. I mean, I could hire twice as many employees for half the money.
Yeah.
But you know what? My employees shouldn't have to drive a 1982 Celica to work.
Right.
Or they should, if they want to go on vacation, they should go on vacation every year. They should take their time off.
Yep.
They should be with their families. When I tell all my employees that, you're never going to be a millionaire in this business, but you know what? If you want to go to your daughter's soccer game on a Tuesday afternoon, have fun.
Yeah.
Or if you, you got to go get your car fixed, whatever, or you got to do this, or, family comes first and your job should come second. And, I think a lot of businesses make it difficult on their employees. And again, I've never looked at numbers on it, but I bet if you look at the turnover rates and everything else, it's almost better the extra couple dollars they might pay them an hour, benefits you in the long run.
Loyalty goes along.
It does. Yeah. It does. And I mean, all my employees through this whole project, they've all been to all the meetings with me, with the towns and the agencies, not for any other reason except for support. And it's nice to see. I mean, we had our meeting with the planning board, and we had all our abutters there. We had all my employees were there. I didn't tell anyone to go. All our employees were there. All the fishermen were there. Business people in the town were there. Just random customers were there, all in support of the project.
Cool.
And it was really nice to see and to hear, people's take on everything.
Yeah. That says it all.
It does. It really says, okay, shoot, I guess I am doing it right.
Right.
In these people's eyes anyways, but
that's great. No, that is well deserved and speaks highly of what you've put together here.
Yeah.
Any advice for a person thinking about starting a business or a fledgling entrepreneur?
I mean, I think any business you got to like, I mean, you don't look at it as I'm going to get rich.
Yeah. Because
the value isn't in your bank account, no matter how old you are, how young you are, and it's easy to get caught up in that.
Yeah.
But the value of life is way more than that. I would say, if you do something you like, and if you're not going to make a lot of money for 5 years, 10 years, but eventually if you work hard and you are hands-on, you keep focused, like I said, you go down and cut the fish when you need to, or you go over the books. I still go over all my numbers before they go to the accountant, just for no other reason. It's mine. I want to know who owes me what and who I owe. And, I don't want to get a report from someone and say, "This is what you owe," because it's not the same.
Yeah.
So I think no matter what you do, you just be involved in every aspect of it and know your business and know what you like to do and keep like I said, employees.
Yeah.
When we started out, I think we had 3 or 4 employees. Now after this new project, we're probably gonna have about 30.
Oh wow.
So it's
cool.
We're growing it, and it's we don't have huge growth, but I just came from the accountant, and more growth again this year, which is perfect. And it's not huge, but it's going the right direction every year.
Little by little,
And that's all you can really do.
Yeah.
And make time for the things that are important in your life. Your family, your friends, your whatever.
Yeah. Cool.
Get outside and be able to enjoy it. Don't sit in an office all day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, thanks, Joby.
Yeah, no problem, Ty.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming by.
That's all for this episode. That was Joby Norton from Mulaney's Harborside Fish Market in Scituate, Mass. This is Ty McDonald, your host, and thank you for tuning in to the Jalapeno Podcast. Thank you, Caitlin Watkins, for the music, and Roos for the music. Thank you to Aaron Mason for your contributions to the show. And thank you, of course, to everybody for listening. This is Ty, and we will catch you next time.